Something that I wanted to talk about on our show, and something that I think that Gavin and I will start covering more, because I realized recently that it just doesn't get covered, at all by most outlets. And so there's a clip from a show that Gavin and I like, friend of the show, Tyrell Ventura, hosts Watching the Hawks over at RT. It's a great show. And they had on Daniel Hale, the whistleblower who has just pled guilty to the Espionage Act. Which I saw got very little coverage. For those who don't know, Daniel Hale leaked documents to The Intercept. It's widely assumed it was Jeremy Scahill who did the reporting on it. A lot of Obama-era drone strike crimes were leaked and exposed by a hero of epic proportions. And you'll find out after we watch this video that he has recently been fired from his job as a dishwasher for trying to organize the staff there. So he went from being an analyst looking at some of the most top secret documents to now he's been blackballed by the entire, fucking country. And now he's been fired for, fighting the good fight continuously, refusing to be broken, trying to organize a staff. And he's been fired from his job as a dishwasher. So, I just wanted to cover this story and let everybody know that, this is what real solidarity, this is what real leftist fighting looks like. This dude is, not doing this for any kind of attention. He's grinding it out, and he's potentially facing a draconian prison sentence all at the same time. So
yeah, 100%. This is a great clip, and like you said, a huge shout out to Watching the Hawks. Make sure to check out that show if you haven't already. And
check out our couple of interviews that we've done with Tyrell as well. He's a great guy, smart guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and it's a super underrated program that not a lot of people know about, but it is worth watching. It really is. And Tyrell Ventura is awesome, so check it out.
CIA.
Welcome everyone to Watching the Hawks, and like always, I am Tyrell Ventura.
And I'm Amisha Cross.
And joining us today is someone who is no stranger to the brutal power of the U.S. justice system when it's trying to protect national security's ugliest and most brutal of secrets. Is former CIA officer and torture whistleblower, the one and only John Kiriakou. John, thank you for coming on.
Happy to do it, Tyrell. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. John, you faced a very similar situation to Mr. Hale's, to what he was facing in your own whistleblowing and subsequent battle with the U.S. government. Can you tell us what that pressure feels like when you have to choose between going to trial and going to legal war against the U.S. government, or pleading guilty to a crime that in reality you should be being celebrated for breaking?
Wow, where do I even begin? I will say that the pressure is just about unbearable. You give serious consideration to suicide. Everybody that I know who's been charged under the Espionage Act has given real thought to suicide. Aaron Schwartz committed suicide while I was awaiting trial, and a reporter asked me if I was surprised, and I said, no, the only thing I'm surprised at is that more people don't commit suicide. What the government does is they'll stack charges on you and then offer to drop all of them once you go bankrupt so that they can guarantee themselves a guilty verdict. But for a long time, from the day of your arrest until the day of your sentencing, you're looking at decades in prison. Daniel Hale is looking at decades. And there's one thing that really frightens me about the news that came out about his case last week, and that is that he pleaded guilty to one count, but that the government is waiting to see what the sentence is going to be before they decide whether or not to drop the remaining counts. Well, I got 2.5 years, Jeffrey Sterling got 3.5 years, Terry Albury got 2 years, poor Reality Winner got 5.25 years. What are we looking at with Daniel Hale?
Seems like when people talk to The Intercept, they get locked up.
No, I don't know if that's necessarily fair, but
it seems to me that they really want to crucify this poor guy.
Wow.
Good points, John. And as you know, The Intercept's Jeremy Scahill, who by all accounts was the journalist at the heart of Hale's story, petitioned the Biden administration to drop the charges against Hale. The Trump administration originally charged Hale. Was there a hope in the whistleblower community that you happen to be a part of that the Biden administration would do things differently than what we've seen from the previous 3 administrations?
There was, but it was very, very brief. And the reason that it ended is because we saw early on, after the election, but even before the inauguration, that Joe Biden didn't want to do anything at all to help Julian Assange. And if he wasn't going to walk away from that terrible case against Julian Assange, which the United States has already lost and is having to appeal, then we didn't think there was going to be any near-term hope for Daniel Hale.
You know, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the trial and the things like that, but I think we owe it to the patriot that Mr. Daniel Hale is to talk about what he actually blew the whistle on. What do you feel was the most important information Hale was able to release to the public about the U.S. drone assassination program under President Obama? I mean, that's the core of what we owe to him, is to talk about what he released to us.
Remember, Barack Obama was responsible for killing more people than any other president since the invention of the drone. Those included multiple American citizens who had never been charged with a crime, American citizens who had never faced their accusers in a court of law. So Daniel Hale told us not just that the drone program was responsible for the deaths of Americans who had never even been accused of a crime, but it was responsible for killing innocent civilians, including women and children. You know, on the rare occasions where we see that the United States initiated a drone strike on someone, the media always tell us that it was against a terrorist or a terrorist suspect, and we're just supposed to take their word for it. Well, we can't take their word for it, because the evidence is out there, thanks to Daniel Hale, that we're using drones to kill innocent civilians, women, children, the elderly, and we're doing it in most cases in secret. For example, in Yemen, we have no declaration of war against Yemen. We don't have any congressional authorization to use force in Yemen. And yet we have a very active drone war going on there. We really wouldn't even know that had it not been for Daniel Hale. And let me add one more thing about the kind of person Daniel Hale is. I know Daniel personally, and I know that he's been struggling to work since his arrest, like all of us do. Who wants to hire someone who's been charged with national security felonies? Well, he got a job as a dishwasher at a restaurant here in Washington, D.C., and he was recently fired. Why was he fired? Because he was trying to organize the kitchen workers into a union. That's how much he cares about his fellow man, that no matter what the cost is to him, he's willing to take that risk. That's the kind of guy he is.
Wow.
In the background. Either way, I was just going to say that was about all I wanted to react to in the clip, but I just wanted to, make a focal point to raise attention to Daniel Hale, point out what kind of a fucking, great guy that he is.
American hero.
An American, exactly. And we all remember that, everybody who was revered in the past, at the time often was overlooked, and Daniel Hale is going to be one of those guys. Just tweet. I don't even know what you can do to really support him at this time, but other than to show solidarity to the guy, I don't know if there's any effort to kind of help his, costs and those kinds of things. But this is what real solidarity, and this is what real, caring about your country and your fellow man looks like. And it's embodied by this dude, Daniel Hale, and, a lot of other whistleblowers who, the cost and the penalties for doing what he did are just so astronomical. And we really owe a debt to people like him.
Especially for exposing our war crimes involving drones, because we've talked about it on this show, but drone warfare kind of allows a certain invisibility here domestically to our horrific imperialist actions abroad. Again, if people aren't coming home in caskets, if, your son or brother or friend is not being, recruited and then coming home dead or with PTSD, then you're going to be there's no evidence of the horrors going on abroad. And not that, people coming home with PTSD or in caskets is a good thing. Of course, that is part of the problem itself. But again, if there's no reminder of the problem, then people domestically are going to be completely oblivious to it. So drone warfare basically allows the continued horrors of our foreign policy to go unnoticed by the people here abroad. And it's not that they don't care. It's just that they don't know.
And they don't get reported on, right? None of this gets reported on.
And when people do report on it, they get charged with the Espionage Act, and they're facing years in jail, and they lose their job and their livelihood. And have to commit or contemplate suicide because the government makes it so horrible for them.